Hello and welcome. I'm Navneeta Khemka. Today I'm delighted to be in conversation with Dr. Sweta Adatia. While many know her for her professional accomplishments as a neurologist, today I'd love to explore the person behind the profession, the experiences, beliefs, challenges, and moments that have shaped her journey. Thank you so much for joining me, Dr. Adatia.
Thank you so much, Navneeta, and greetings to all the people who are listening to us. Thank you for this invitation.
Thank you. Let's meet the little girl before the doctor. How about that? When you think back to your childhood, what kind of a little girl was Shweta?
Wow, down the memory lane in the brain is always an exciting thing, right? So I was born in India, a small little town
Hmm.
called Jamnagar, which is not any more small because now it's all owned literally by the Reliance and Ambanis. It is a beautiful journey that I had as a child. But the funny thing was that I never spoke, so I was a late speaker.
Really?
So 2 years, 2.5 years, 3 years, 3.5 years, and my mom and dad were both into medical field. And because I didn't speak, they were pretty frenzied as to what is happening, quite worried in terms of
Hmm.
my not speaking. So I will keep the story until the end of the podcast, what really happened into that. But then, yes, as a child, I grew up I was very naughty and always full of energy. Somehow, I would open the book and then suddenly everything would just get memorized automatically. So never had to really work hard or study enough. And that's why I had lots of time to do a lot of naughty things, a lot of funny things. I was a creator.
Nice.
I would just gather people around and, do all sorts of things. And lots and lots of five elements, lots and lots of playing in the mother lap of nature, lots and lots of people, socialization,
Hmm.
lots and lots of I would say seva. So there used to be a lot of people around which used to do a lot of humanity work. So I have been a volunteer in a lot of those activities. So it was fun.
And that is so much lacking in our lives. There's void, loneliness, and that's why we want to go back to the roots. Aren't we reinventing the wheel?
That's true. That's true. In fact, if we look back, I mean, we have just now been put up in these concrete jungles, and that connection to the Mother Earth and connection to the five elements is essentially lacking. So, yes, we were very fortunate. That was the luxury. Those five elements were the luxury.
Dr. Shweta, did you always know you wanted to become a doctor?
Not at all, not at all. So I wanted to become a food photographer, pretty much was interested in culinary sciences. I never wanted, in fact, to also pursue neurology, but then I think universe has its own ways, right?
Hmm.
So I got a lot of marks, 95, 97%. I don't remember exactly, but then the question was, kya kare, what to do? So my parents said, try medicine, but I gave them a condition. I'll go try medicine, but if I don't like it, I'm going to be stepping out from it. My parents were pretty cool and they said, yeah, it's okay, try. That trial became 5 years of medicine, 1 year of internship, 1 year of
Wow.
pre-medicine, 3 years of medicine, 1 year of pre-neurology, 3 years of neurology, 2 years in stroke, 14 years Kavanvas. So that essentially converted
Super.
into 14 years. But there was a pivotal turning point for my life in that med school, and particularly the first year. I was sitting in that class, and that class was on embryology. So the sperm and the ovum and zygote, and the professor was teaching how the baby is formed. And suddenly that image struck me, and I said, "वो तो सब ठीक है, okay, that's the process, you meiosis and mitosis, and that's all okay. But who is behind this?
Hmm.
How is this the whole thing getting
Happening. Oh my
orchestrated?"
God. Yeah. Big thought.
And it
Inquisitive.
was sort of a existential crisis question. What is happening? Who is creating all this, and
Yeah.
why?
The most profound question, मैं कौन? Hmm.
Yeah, exactly. वो मैं कौन वाला चीज, and it sort of somehow took me over so badly that I would come back home and continue to think about it. I would make my parents sick. Every day I would just catch them and say, "नहीं नहीं बताओ, who am I? Who am I?
Wow.
Who really am I?"
Hmm.
And I was barely 15 and 16, maybe 15 or 16, and they got tired of that question, and they said, "We don't know, but maybe there's somebody who is coming to Jamnagar will answer that question." And I said, "Who is that?"
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
my mom said, opened a newspaper and said, "Some Swamini Vimalananda, you can go and ask her. They basically wanted to get rid of me, right? I was so pestering them that night and day, this thing, that sort of the class got stuck in my brain somehow. And I don't know, maybe it initiated some memories of the past, or I really don't know what it did. But then, I just, as a trial, my mom said, go try, try to ask her.
Nice.
I went to one of the lectures that she was delivering. But still, I don't know, somehow she was a very charming speaker and she was really talking sense. So I said, wow, she's amazing. So I'm going to listen to her. Second day, third day, fourth day, the sort of fifth day was the last
Yeah.
day. I said, oh my God, I've come to ask my question as to who am I? I was just standing there, and
Wow.
suddenly, she walks all the way down the stage across to me, all the people, and says, you have a question for me. And
Lucky
oh my,
you.
yes, I have a question. And I said,
Oh,
she says, look, talk over breakfast. So the next day, I used to write a lot of poems. So I took my poems to her at the breakfast table. We are sitting and she's reading those poems and understood, wow, there's something going on inside me where
Nice.
I am not able to find those answers. And I'm very, uh, in the sort of coming from the place of pain as to
mm,
why am I born and what is happening around
mm,
me and blah, blah. So that is, I think, the starting point of my spiritual journey. And she started to say, why don't you travel with me?
Hmm.
So I would go travel with
Interesting.
her to multiple cities, countries. I think the fun was really the travel and
Wow.
not
mm.
really what she was teaching. Or in the morning, we used to have meditation, and I would clearly tell her, look, I am happy horizontally meditating. I don't need to be vertical. I don't need to sit, I'm pretty happy. I'm chilled out already. Why do I need meditation? So that is how my journey understanding the spirituality started. And what I loved about her and my journey was there was no religion. It was
Mm,
all about the way of living. And I dodged meditation for years,
mm,
like almost 15, 16 years. And when I went into a deep emotional crisis, that is when I called her and said, I think now I really need that meditation. So many, many years later, sort of the cycle completed back, and all that I had learned started to be of rescue, to help me in my emotional progress. So the IQ, the EQ, the adversity quotient, AQ, spiritual quotient, SQ, all these are very, very important for life. And I wish I had understood it way before, but then obviously it was an interesting journey nevertheless.
You have touched upon so many things. You had intuition, you had questions, you went to seek the answers for it. On the way, you touched upon spirituality. And we're also studying to become a doctor. There are so many people who are struggling. They have questions about life, they don't know where to go, how to find these answers. This can happen with anybody. How do they look for their answers? How?
Beautiful question. Look, I think the first thing is it was a very important thing to ask question. If I did not ask that question, possibly I won't be here today talking to you about the
Yeah,
journey, right?
exactly.
If I would have shied away from getting that answer from whoever, just random person, strange person, I just took that leap of faith. Sometimes you have to ask the question, remain curious,
Hmm.
and then go ahead and take that leap of faith and start understanding. And then, every single time I had a question, I went on deeper, digging it, and I
Hmm.
wanted to go to the best experts and learn it also. So I still remember
Hmm.
past life, dimag mein chal raha tha, and I said, no, I'm going to pack my bags, go to New York. Dr. Brian Weiss was conducting 21 days of teaching program back then.
Many lives, many
Many lives, many
masters.
masters. Only love is real. Many souls,
love
many
is real.
bodies.
Yeah, that
So
too.
I went and did his workshop. Then after a while, understood, okay, what is the way in which this happens. I would just go pack my bags and say, okay, now let me go and ask this Himalayan master, what is the meaning of life? Let me just pack my bag and go to this southern India, this particular temple, which is what I read in the book. So with that parallel dogma of modern medicine and spirituality was almost going on for good not now as I look back, it's 29 years.
I have one another important question in my mind. What life really is? I'm sure this is a loaded question, but what is life to you?
It's a very, very beautiful question, right? I mean, and I would like to pose the question, what is not life?
I'd say if I'm not living, it's not life. For me.
For me, every moment just being present is life, you know. So if you are living in the past, then you're not living, you're dead.
Mm.
If you are living in the future, which has not happened, then you're
Happened.
not, then also you're dead. So I think every moment, just being in the present, here and now, is what life is all about. But you know, it's very simple, but we love to make things complicated, right? We
Mm.
start putting conditions, and then we start putting programming, and then we start putting expectations, and we start putting all kinds of funny impressions that we have because of our subconscious mind. You know, subconscious mind has been gathering all those impressions, giving a
Mm.
little filter, giving a little layer, and it wants to protect you. So it'll start to judge, oh, why is Navneeta asking this question? You know, why is
Mm.
she doing that? So it will continue to, because it wants to protect you, right? So we always are falling prey to that mind game, which is happening behind the scene as a part of our evolutionary
What do you mean
objectives.
by being in the moment?
If you are not in the present, then a lot of your autonomic nervous system, what we
Yeah.
call the running gears of your life, the parasympathetic, which means rest and digest, and sympathetic, which means fight and flight, is not optimally functioning. And that is the reason why disease also happens. So if your DMN is quiet, you're balancing the parasympathetic and sympathetic, then only you are just here and now in this conversation. There is no past, there is no future, just this here
Just
and now. In that moment, you forget about everything. So that's what the state of flow, or whatever, you know, the modern science wants to call it. That is the time when your brain is coherently functioning. That is the time when your DMN is
Mm.
silent. That is the time when you're not in the past or in the future. And it is very difficult to achieve, you know. Very few people are able to do that, because most of the times the cassette recorder is always ongoing at
On.
the behind the scene, right? Constantly ongoing.
You work with the brain every day. What fascinates you more about the human mind? Do science and spirituality coexist? And this is so fascinating. I wondered there have been so many neurologists for generations. Why did they not connect it?
Oh, that's again a very nice question, Avnida.
Mhm.
Brain is the most sophisticated instrument. Small little sitting up there, but takes away 20 to 25% of the energy consumption. So one fourth of whatever we eat, whatever we do, is already been taken care by the brain, you know. 100 billion neurons, trillions of synapses, the memory, which is 2.5 petabyte, and 1 petabyte is almost a million gigabyte. It's the way it is built is just absolutely fascinating. Now, yes, my entire day goes in analyzing, also analyzing what it is, the pattern impacting the behavior of somebody. What is it doing to stop the progress of somebody? How is it making somebody a
Mm.
peak performer? How is it leading to, let's say, winning mindset? What is it doing to convert a disease into almost a perpetual autoimmune condition? So it's instrumental in various of these conditions, right? But if we were to answer your other part of the question, how is it related to spirituality?
Mm.
So I think spirituality is more about consciousness, about the existence or the unity of that power and force, which is
So,
wiring that brain as well. So the firepower of that brain is coming from that consciousness, that reality, that supreme self, whatever you want to call it in the spiritual realms. But then itself, brain is an
so
instrument.
how do you make this instrument work for you?
A couple of years, 2 years of very dedicated different pranayama practices, and very dedicated understanding of how to transfer that limbic circuit firing into the frontal cortex, and you know, sort of to change
Mm.
the entire functioning of the brain. It took a lot of
Mm.
efforts, but then effort would be there and I would fail. So I wanted to study
Mm.
resilience, and that's how then, you know, I started to invite a lot of top performers, athletes, Olympic
Wow.
champions. Nicole, one of the persons
Mm.
who stood on Burj Khalifa, she was the one who had some, and she lives in US. She had
Mm.
a lot of fractures,
Mm.
accident, ICU for 6 months, and then she comes out and stands and does the toughest
Mm.
stunt in the world. So I was very curious to know how their brains functions. The easy thing for me was, I'll just copy
Mm.
that, you know, whatever is their brain circuit, I would just, you know,
Yeah.
literally copy paste that. So when I started to interview and I started to realize, God, the simple things are only what they're doing. It is not something
Mm,
extraordinarily different that they're doing. They're very ritualistic.
mm,
And their rituals include meditation, include breath practices, includes writing
mm.
journals, includes
Wow.
catharsis. So simple, simple things.
Mm,
And I said, wow, this is not difficult. I can do it. And I literally started to apply simple things in my daily life. Brain started to change. And when major shifts started to happen, we started to record those shifts. We started to go back to those techniques. So, for example, kumbhak, which is the breath holding, breath retention. Then Gayatri Mantra shifted alpha peak immensely. And then there was the
mm,
different technique of breathing, what we call as
mm,
Ujjayi, which is victory breath. So every little thing, then we started to document it, going back to the
mm,
literature. And finally, we said, wow, this is a very simple way to rewire. And why don't we build this for everybody? So that's how
mm.
neuroscience, that's how lab parameters, that's how a lot of studies which happen.
Oh.
And then obviously, you
Mm,
don't stop there. Then
mm,
you go back little bit
mm,
back in time and say, oh,
mm,
Homa karte hain. What was the need for
mm,
doing that? Slowly
mm,
Homa, for example, Monica Ji's work is on Homa. So then we got intrigued that what is Homa doing,
mm,
know ki, what is really happening. When we started to measure people's brain parameters, we started to understand that that's giving gamma coherence, which means your brain is starting to optimize or sort of
mm,
work at the highest frequency, which is great for cognitive functioning, which is great for
mm,
memory, which is great for mood, amazing for emotional regulation. Then I was quite
mm,
curious to know ki if this is happening in 5 minutes, what is happening in a bigger yagna, Mahayagna, what they call it. So somebody, and God also, universe is kind. I
mm,
get a email saying, oh, 21 Pandits are doing 1001 Yajurveda.
mm,
Would you like to do the scan? So my team goes there and gets done the
mm,
scans. And then somebody says, oh, we also do 2 minutes of early morning Agnihotra, which is also a small little offering to the Agni. Then we said, oh, very good. We'll come to Rishikesh and we'll see what is happening. So our team
mm,
goes to Rishikesh. So now when we have that little 2 minutes of a process, then we have a 5 minutes of a Homa, and we have this
mm.
young, huge, like 21 people chanting 1001 times Yajur Veda and all the three showed the similar results.
So
We
you
were like,
scanned all the brains? All the 21 brains?
all the 21 brains and all the people who are there. So we generally have a protocol. So initially we do something called the pilot. So we pick up 5 people and we do the entire thing very meticulously. Once we
Hmm.
see something that yes, there is a change which is seen, then we gather 15 people. Then we have a protocol that we move on to
Hmm.
the next stage, and then we move on to 25 participants.
Very
So
interesting.
that those
Hmm.
papers, and to the surprise, obviously this is Indian tradition.
Hmm.
We have known it for
Hmm.
ages, our
Years.
rishis and
Yeah.
everything. Years, like dog
Hmm.
years. And all the papers
Hmm.
that we found were from Germany.
Hmm.
79 Homa papers, majority of that chunk was from Germany, that it
Wow.
is
Hmm.
anti-radiation and it is very helpful if
Hmm.
the ashes is alkaline in nature, and it helps to balance the pH in the body, gets rid of a lot of autoimmune conditions, other diseases, etc. When we got hold of this, we said, no, this has to go to the world. The world has to hear about it.
Yeah.
And
Oh my
it
God.
is free. It is not something that
Hmm.
you spend, so we always say that you can spend X number of dollars for longevity, but I think longevity is all inside out. If the
Hmm.
moment you are aligned to your heart brain axis, you're aligned to your
Hmm.
gut brain axis, you're aligned to your values, what you speak, what you think, what you do, if they are all aligned, that's it. That's longevity. You don't need to
Wow.
spend a lot of dollars doing that.
That's super. Now, what brings you to the US with this knowledge of yours? What should people expect when they are there? And if they're looking for some answers, what answers can they find?
I love to come to US because I studied in a couple of universities there, did my fellowships, did my lot of small little research programs. So
Right.
it's always great because the innovation drive, the people's enthusiasm to learn, the curiosity which in general the people have is just absolutely mind-blowing, right?
Yeah,
And
that's true.
then obviously to meet the diaspora, because they are much more connected to the Indian roots than what Indians are in India.
Yeah.
So it's always good to
Hmm.
learn again as you are interacting with them. So we
Hmm.
wanted to sort of bridge this science and spirituality. So I would represent, of course, the neuroscience, and then Monica Singhalji would represent the spirituality. Smiles has done a lot of work when it comes to meditation and healing. So we wanted to meet
Hmm.
people essentially, and then there is a lot of stress. The people are suffering. There's a lot of pain. There's lots of conditions of sleep. The people are suffering with
Hmm.
anxiety. There's a lot of depression. So all these chronic conditions somewhere has a root cause, which is in these alignments, right? In the alignment of the heart brain axis, of the gut brain axis. We thought we'll bring in a program which is called the ultimate reset, that we can reset these axes and give
Wow.
very simple tools, nothing fancy, just very simple. And the tools that we learned, and that tool, we just published it. It's called movers. So meditation,
Movers.
oxygenation, visualization, exercise, reciting or reading, and S is scribing, and sleep protocols. If you get all these right in your entire day for 20 to 25 minutes, a lot of reset happens. But
Yes.
then the question comes is, what kind of meditation for Navneeta versus
Hmm.
what kind of it for Shweta? Because our brains are different. So can we identify and hyper personalize and customize those things? The answer is very much yes. Are there some formulas? So the answer is yes. So that's what our
Hmm.
work is on. So I would be
Hmm.
happy to share that kind of a work, which will essentially help people to resolve a lot of their physical, mental,
Hmm.
emotional, wealth related problems from the root, from the
Wow.
source.
It is a 2-day workshop, right? Will you be scanning the brains, or you would pick up a few?
Yeah, so we will show the lot of data, what we have done already, the scannings and all. The very first day is going to be in most cities that we are going to travel. The first day is going to be just an RSVP, so people would just need to register. And then that's going to be talking about the basic, this entire philosophy, and we'll show a lot of data. We will make them do a lot of experiments. We will do some live connections with heart rate variability, and if possible, also hook up a scan to show live how things are happening. But the second day, where people who are very keen
Hmm.
and serious to understand this deeper, there would be some simple little registration fee with which they will then come on in. And that is the time
Hmm.
when it'll be limited seats so that we
That's
can
nice.
interact what sort of a personal issue or that they're going through. So it's very strange, right? We have carried our
Yeah,
brains for God alone knows 40, 50, 60.
since we were born.
Since we were born, we all know our thyroid levels. We all know what our iron levels are, and we all know sugar, and
Hmm.
definitely we would know our weight, right? We will know our
Hmm.
BMI and all of that. But do we know what is the
Hmm.
capacity of our frontal cortex? Do we know memory reserve? Do we know what is our focus value? Do we really
Hmm.
know what is the balance between the left, light and the left? We unfortunately don't know all of these statistics. And
Hmm.
if we what we cannot measure, we
Hmm.
cannot manage. It's as simple as that.
Wow.
So we at the lab also want to break this silo, that go ahead and check it out, because proactively
Hmm.
you will have to start managing this
Hmm.
instrument. You have been doing reactive care. Yes, you have dementia now. Now, what very limited
Hmm.
neurodegenerative help that we can give you? Parkinson's. What can we give? We just have to manage the disease then. Why don't you manage the brain rather than managing the disease? Any which
Hmm.
ways, every decade, we are losing 5% of our brain. So there
Hmm.
should be some checks and balances in relation to the lifestyle. One single
Hmm.
night sleep loss, one single night can technically erase completely
Oh.
80 of your genes. And one of the major genes in that which gets erased is one which is related to your cholesterol.
Ah.
So Very, very simple things are making massive dents, and we are too casual about it.
Hmm.
At the why don't we give you a hack
Hmm.
which is called
Hmm.
Yoga Nidra? In
Hmm.
45 minutes of Yoga Nidra, you will get the exact same benefit what an
Because
8 hour of
I
a sleep.
can just sleep for 4 hours, and I'm as fresh as like I had an 8 hour sleep. I can even take power naps for that matter. Many
Cause
times.
possibly subconsciously you're hacking that, right? You are getting into those sleep cycles faster. So we explain to people there is a
Hmm.
way
The
in which
way.
you can alter your circuits. You can
Hmm.
alter your brain's
At
processes
will.
at will. Otherwise, the brain is going to completely happen.
Hmm.
All the things are anyways happening. But when you can do at will, that is when the fun begins, right? That is the real essence of it. So we teach that. We teach people to alter their mental states. We teach people, and we have built something called 5D. It's one of
5D.
my favorite programs. So you go from beta, which is focus and attention, to alpha, which is relaxation. We go into theta, which is still slower function of the brain. Then we go into delta, which is your deep sleep. And then we get into gamma, which is the fastest rhythm. So we do
Hmm.
this 5D as an audio visual experiential
Audio
journey. So
visual.
people just get in
5D.
their
What is that?
earphones, and then they, through the music, through the sound, through the binaural beats, we take them to altered states. And we have built this entire thing with a German scholar who's a PhD in neuroscience and PhD in music.
Hmm.
So it's one
Oh.
of the best music pieces that is built, so very quickly with the lowest latency you get and you change those brains rhythm. So it can help in deep rewiring, it can help in shifting a lot of emotional baggages, it can help to potentially manipulate this DMN that we're talking about. It can help to build the frontal cortex, which is the seat of our
Hmm.
humanness. So awareness, what we call as whole brain awareness, that is very important. And
Important. Tell us the secret of manifestation. Do you really believe in manifestation?
I don't believe it, I practice it. So
Wow.
it's
How do you do that?
So, we are all manifesting as we are
Hmm.
speaking, because the
Interesting.
moment we speak, the moment we react, the moment we respond, the moment our bioelectric fields are
Hmm.
shifting, energy and matter is transmutating. It's just a matter of taking that awareness and external
Hmm.
control and understanding certain quantum principles, and making sure that we are consciously aware about those patterns. So if I were to very, very simplify and make it understand, is my beta brain cannot think of manifestation. It's only surviving, surviving,
Hmm.
surviving, always at the functioning of kya
Hmm.
hoga, kya hoga.
Food.
If I go into the deeper states of the brain, I consciously, in the awake state, activate my slowest rhythm called
Hmm.
delta, which is in the conscious state, in the awake state, then I am sort of touching the unified field of
Hmm.
consciousness. In that unified field of consciousness, and that's why Yoga Nidra, you always put an intention.
Hmm.
You always
Hmm.
put some sankalpa in the
Hmm.
Yoga Nidra. Yoga Nidra is not without
Acha.
sankalpa, because that sankalpa and intention is essentially putting that unified field of consciousness and sort of, advancing what you want in
Hmm.
life. But for that, you have to go to the deepest layer of your
Hmm.
brain. So essentially, it is
Hmm.
physiology. It is much beyond psychology. So if your breath is entrained, if your heart brain is entrained, if you're very clear where you're heading
Hmm.
to, if you go into the deepest of the delta and practice often,
Interesting.
getting into that unified field of consciousness, you are able to retain your breath for a longest period of time, because in that breath retention, let's say I take a deep breath and I'm able to hold it for 10, 15, 20 seconds, and at that time able to picture whatever I want to get in life, or whatever I want to be in life, or whatever I want. At that time your subconscious just literally takes a click. It just takes
Ah,
that
how
picture,
lovely. Very
because
interesting. Very interesting.
because
How
when you're in
lovely.
that the retention of the breath, you suddenly gasp, right? So it's a fight or flight for your brain. So your brain goes into that deepest of the state, wants to preserve everything, protect, and there's a jolt, there's a shock which is there, and that shock, you just delivered the message that you wanted to. So it is it is
Wow.
pretty scientific,
Hmm.
there is no
Hmm.
woo around it. As long as we
Hmm.
understand, it works amazingly well. In my life, I think, looking back, every little thing has been only manifestation. Now, initially, I was unaware, so I was just doing it unaware,
Hmm.
unconsciously. Then slowly, I became a little
Aware.
aware, but I was still
Hmm.
unconscious. Now, possibly a little bit more aware and more conscious.
So, what is Dr. Shweta Datia manifesting now?
So 10 million souls, that is the outreach, and people like you help us, so the universe brings in the right people, the right messages, the right kind of support system in US. My mission is just that having the control of this amazing instrument that you have can alter your health issues, can alter your wealth issues, your relationship issues. So it's just a matter of committing,
Hmm.
doing it consistently, and the results are all, aayega hi bhai. I'm
Hmm.
not,
Hmm.
I don't doubt it because I have done it myself. I've made multiple people do it, and let me complete my story of speaking, right? So
Oh, yeah, that story. You've come back to it. Lovely closing the circle once again.
I was a late speaker. Now my mom used to work. She was a chemistry. She was in pharmacology and pharmacochemistry. So
Hmm.
she was working in a lab. It was an Arya Samaj lab in
Hmm.
India,
Hmm.
and in Arya Samaj, multiple thousands of young girls, they chant Gayatri mantra every day.
Gayatri
So
Mantra.
that's like a practice. And at the background also there is a tape recorder of Gayatri mantra which plays. Now my mom never believed in anything. She would just go do her work. But
Hmm.
all 9 months while I was in her womb,
Hmm.
this was going on. This was playing at the back end.
Hmm.
Now was not talking, so my
Hmm.
parents thought, "Arey, ye kya ho gaya? What is going on?"
Hmm.
Pediatrician, ENT,
Hmm.
every other doctor they could imagine and think, they took me, and everybody would say, "No, everything is all right. There's nothing wrong with the baby. Possibly the baby is not listening enough because you guys
Hmm.
go to work.
Hmm.
Shift her to grandparents' house, and
Hmm.
maybe that'll work." So my mom and dad
Everybody.
put me to my grandparents' house. Lo and behold, yes, there's lots of activity going on. So I start to talk. But
You started to
I
talk?
start to talk, yes, but
Huh.
I start speaking the entire Gayatri Mantra.
Hmm.
At
Oh.
that age, I'm not speaking anything else, but I
Anything
know
else but Gayatri Mantra. Okay.
Gayatri Mantra. So my parents got shocked, and my parents could not figure this out ki ye kaise. And then suddenly my mom remembered, oh my God, that was the only thing 9 months all round the
She had
clock which
listened.
was being played. So
Hmm.
Oh,
somewhere Gayatri was sort of installed as a program. And then over the time, Gayatri sort of became, my go-to everything. And then I took Gayatri Mantra to the lab and I said, let us see what really happens with this Gayatri Mantra. I was always chanting it. And as I'm speaking to you also, there is at my back, there's always this Gayatri Mantra which is going on, ajap ajap, what we call, right? So
wow.
Hmm.
I took it
Go
to the
to.
lab, and Gayatri Mantra is amazing to create something called very high alpha
Hmm.
peak. So
Hmm.
when the alpha peak in the brain is high, you are focused and relaxed both at the same time. So you, with the least of energy, you can do much more work. So that entropy, what we call as entropy, which means you preserve your energy
Really?
and you're able to do high level of
Wow.
the work, that happens with Gayatri. So
Hmm.
possibly without my realization, I was reading for a little time and getting more this
Hmm.
out of it. And I would work little and then
Okay.
get more, was possibly due to
Hmm.
subconscious or unconscious awareness that Gayatri was working. So I call these mantras and these philosophies
Hmm.
and this kind of chanting and
Hmm.
meditations and all as technology. They are
Yeah.
neurotechnologies.
Hmm.
They can do wonders, provided you do it well and you do it
And
consistently.
regularly. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Shweta Datia, for sharing not just your professional journey, but your heart, your wisdom, and your experiences. I've truly enjoyed this conversation. I'm sure our listeners will take away something meaningful from it. Thank you for joining me. Means a lot. More power to you, and hope you touch that 1 million mark. The people that you want to touch very, very
Good
soon,
And
memory.
as you're
You've got a good memory.
manifesting that,
All
right?
right. Thank you so much to everybody also who's listening, and stay safe, and we'll catch you soon on 30th and 31st of July.
July.
Yeah, looking forward to July. You have a wonderful night. Thank you.